Hello, my Biblio darlings, and thank you so much for coming back. My name's Mally, and I'm here to read you stories. And today's story that we're going to be reading is called Mr. Nobody. But before we go into reading the story, let's do some exercises that remind our body that we are safe right here and right now. And we're going to do that through two different exercises. One is going to be a deep breathing exercise. It's what's known as a 4-4-8 deep breathing exercise, where we inhale for 4, we hold the breath for 4, and we exhale out for 8. Then the next thing that's going to happen is I'm going to tell you 3 knock-knock jokes. But let's do our deep breathing exercise. Are you ready? Okay. Inhale deeply for 1, 2, 3, 4. And now hold the breath for And now exhale out the mouth for 8. Good job. And now another way to remind the body to relax is by knock-knock jokes. Knock, knock. Who's there? Cod. Cod who? Caught you red-handed with all my gummy worms. Oh, that's so good. In caught you red-handed, but it's caught you red-handed. Oh, I like that. Okay, let's read a second one. Knock, knock. Who's there? Dancer. Dancer who? Dancer is simple. It wasn't a ghost. It was only the wind. Oh, the answer. The answer is simple. It wasn't a ghost. It was only the wind. And let's read the third joke. Knock, knock. Who's there? Dale. Dale who? Dale take you swimming if you ask them to. Dale. They'll? Oh, they'll take you swimming if you ask them to. Okay. That is cute. So I'm hoping that you enjoyed those jokes. They were funny. Okay, well, let's read Mr. Nobody. And on the cover, it looks like a person who's invisible. And how I know this is there's a worm behind Mr. Nobody, and you can see right through Mr. Nobody and see the worm coming out of the hole. Let's see what life is like for Mr. Nobody. The first page, it doesn't look like Mr. Nobody. It looks like a person who's happy. And the person is all yellow and they have a big smile on their face. Hello. Meet Mr. Happy. Happy by name and happy by nature. And now I'm going to tell you a story. Actually, the story isn't about Mr. Happy. Well, not really. It's about somebody he met not very long ago. Last month, in fact. Mr. Happy had been to tea with little Miss Sunshine. Oh, she's such a sweetie. He thought about catching a bus to take him home, but as it was such a nice day, he thought again and decided to walk. And he was glad he did. Would you like to know why? I shan't tell you. Not yet, anyway. Mr. Happy was whistling to himself as he walked along when he heard a noise. He stopped. There it was again. A sort of sniffling noise. Sniff, sniff, sniff. Suddenly, a drop of rain splashed on top of his head. It does look like a big raindrop splashed on Mr. Happy's head. That's odd, he thought to himself, looking up. There isn't a cloud in the sky. And then he couldn't believe his eyes. You'll never guess what Mr. Happy saw. There, sitting on the branch of a tree, was somebody who sort of was, but wasn't. I know it sounds ridiculous, but it's true. You could see through him. And he was crying real big, fat, wet tears. Aww. Which, of course, were what had splashed on top of Mr. Happy's head. Oh, and then looking at the picture, there's Mr. Nobody, and he's sitting up on a tree, and his big tears are dropping down right on top of Mr. Happy. Who, Mr. Happy managed to splutter, are you? The person who sort of was but wasn't looked mournfully down at him, and mournfully is like kind of sad, kind of really sad. And in a mournful, melancholy voice, like really low and no energy, replied, "Nobody." "Nobody," gasped Mr. Happy. "But everybody's somebody." The person who sort of was but wasn't sighed deeply. "Except me," he said, and he started to cry more, real big, fat, wet tears. "I feel so bad for Mr. Nobody." Mr. Happy scratched his head, which was getting quite wet by this time. "Can you get down?" he wondered. "Possibly," replied Mr. Nobody, and he climbed down out of the tree. "Where have you come from?" asked Mr. Happy. "Nowhere," Mr. Nobody sighed, the sort of sigh that breaks your heart. "Oh, I know I used to be somebody, but I can't remember who," he sniffed. "Or what?" he sniffed. "Or where?" he sniffed. "Or when?" he sobbed. Mr. Nobody looks really sad. Oh. Mr. Happy couldn't help but stare. It isn't often you meet somebody you can see right through. "I think," said Mr. Happy, "that you had better come home with me." "Why?" sobbed Mr. Nobody. "Because," said Mr. Happy, "we must do something about you." "There's nothing you can do about a nobody," wept the person who sort of was but wasn't. "Of course there is," said Mr. Happy. "Follow me." And here's the picture of Mr. Happy, who is shaded in yellow, and he's got a happy face on his face. There's Mr. Nobody, who you can see right through. He's walking in behind Mr. Happy, and he's frowning. And they're walking outside along a path, and it looks like there's grass and hills, and the sun is out, and there's trees and shrubs, and pretty flowers. There's red flowers and blue flowers and yellow flowers. Eventually, they reached Mr. Happy's house and went into his living room. Mr. Happy pointed to a chair. "Sit yourself down," he said. It was really quite extraordinary. It was really quite extraordinarily extraordinary, seeing somebody who was nobody sitting in a chair. Mr. Happy sat down too, and thought hard. "The wizard!" cried Mr. Happy. "Of course!" And see here, Mr. Nobody is sitting on a chair. You can see the chair, the blue chair behind Mr. Nobody, but you can't see Mr. Nobody because he's invisible. So the following morning, after no breakfast, Mr. Happy took Mr. Nobody to see the wizard. "Ah," remarked the wizard, after Mr. Happy had tried to explain. "Ah," he said again, eyeing Mr. Nobody. Mr. Nobody just stood there looking as glum as anyone can look, and glum is really sad. "Just try turning the corners of your mouth down as far as they will go. Go on." Well, that's about half as glum as Mr. Nobody looked. The wizard thought and thought, and thought some more. "Care for a cup of tea?" he inquired. "Nobodies don't drink nothing," replied Mr. Nobody. "Nobodies don't drink anything," said the wizard, correcting him. "That's right," agreed Mr. Nobody. "Aha!" cried the wizard. "That's it!" The wizard rushed over to his workbench and started to mix up lots of different colored liquids in a huge bottle. They bubbled and gurgled together and let off little puffs of white smoke. Bubble, bubble, gurgle, puff. Bubble, bubble, gurgle, puff. "What color would you like to be?" the wizard asked Mr. Nobody. "Nobodies aren't colored," came the sad reply. "You choose," said the wizard, pointing to Mr. Happy. Mr. Happy thought. "Well," he said, "I've always really rather quite enjoyed being yellow." "Yellow it shall be," shouted the wizard as he poured more liquid into the bottle. And if you look at the picture, there's all different colors in the bottle. There's yellow, there's red, there's green, there's blue. There's puffs of smoke coming out of the bottle. Suddenly, with one huge puff of white smoke, the liquid turned bright yellow. "Right," cried the wizard. "Drink that." "Nobodies don't drink nothing," said Mr. Nobody. "Exactly," shouted the wizard at the top of his voice. "Nobodies don't drink nothing. Therefore, nobodies must drink something." Mr. Nobody took hold of the bottle and took a small sip. "More!" cried the wizard. "Much more!" Mr. Nobody shut his eyes and took a deep breath, and swallowed all of the liquid. Mr. Happy and the wizard watched and waited and waited and watched. "Told you so," said Mr. Nobody. And he sighed. Another one of those sighs that breaks your heart. Oh, I feel so bad for Mr. Nobody. But wait a minute. Did their eyes deceive them? That means, did their eyes trick them? Or they looked at Mr. Nobody's feet. They were turning sort of, yes, yellow. Yes, decidedly yellow. Definitely yellow. And look at Mr. Nobody's feet. They're half filled and half shaded in with yellow. Then Mr. Nobody's legs turned yellow, and then his body, and then his arms. "His nose!" Mr. Happy shouted. "What about his nose?" Because his nose does kind of look invisible in the picture. They watched, and they waited, and they waited, and they watched. Nothing happened. Suddenly, Mr. Nobody sneezed. And immediately after he sneezed, with an enormous pop, atsy shoo pop, his nose turned yellow as well. Oh, I wish you'd been there to see Mr. Nobody's face. His mouth stopped turning down and started turning up into a smile, and up again. "Well," chuckled Mr. Happy, "I told you so. Everybody's a somebody." I love this story. You know why? Because sometimes when we feel like we're alone or lost or invisible, we need that special person to come and remind us that we have so many talents to offer, and we can walk back into who we were always meant to be. So if you feel like a Mr. Nobody, I'm hoping, I just burped again. I'm hoping that there's someone in your life that can bring the color back to your life. So with that comes the end of the story today. But let's do our deep breathing exercise. Are you ready? Okay. Inhale deeply for 1, 2, 3, 4. And now hold the breath for mm. And now exhale out the mouth for 8. Good job. And now another way to remind the body to relax is by knock-knock jokes. Are you ready? So here is the question. Knock, knock. Who's there? Dale. Dale who? Dale take you swimming if you ask them to. Oh, I did that last time. Sorry. Okay. Knock, knock. Who's there? Delta. Delta who? Delta great hand of cards. Oh, get it? Your Delta great hands of cards? Okay, let's read the second joke. Knock, knock. Who's there? Dennis. Dennis who? Dennis gave me a new toothbrush. Dennis gave me a new toothbrush. Dentist gave me a new toothbrush. I like that. Okay, and the last joke today. Knock, knock. Who's there? Lion. Lion who? Lying to me will get you in big trouble. Oh, lying to me will get you in big trouble. That's a cute one too. Well, thank you so much for coming and joining in my reading of Mr. Nobody. And I'm hoping that you take any of the exercises that I share with you, the deep breathing or the laughing, and take it with you throughout the day. So we've done 3 calming exercises. One is the deep breathing, one is the laughing, and the third one, believe it or not, is when I read to you a story. Because when you hear the story, your body goes, oh, I'm relaxed. So with that, thank you so much for coming, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Bye!